Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and with Benedict Cumberbatch confirming that Doctor Strange will not appear in Avengers Doomsday, we are back to asking the question, what was the original plan for Avengers The Kang Dynasty? And what does Doctor Strange being thrown out with the Kang bathwater mean for the interconnected narrative that sets up Secret Wars? And why does Doctor Doom replacing Kang in the cinematic adaptation of Jonathan Hickman's Time Runs Out /2015 Secret Wars crossover event mean if Doctor Strange can no longer be in the first part of it? Let's break down everything we know about the original draft of the Kang Dynasty and what we will see from Doctor Strange going forward. So you may remember that Avengers 5 was announced to be titled Avengers The Kang Dynasty at Comic-Con in July 2022, and shortly after announced to be directed by Shang-Chi director Destin Daniel Cretton. In September 2022, Jeff Loveness, the Loki writer who was then working on the script for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, was announced to be the screenwriter for Avengers The Kang Dynasty. The Kang Dynasty announcement came at the same time in which Kevin Feige announced that Avengers Secret Wars would be the second half of that event, and also at that Comic-Con showed the first ever footage of Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror in trailer footage for Quantumania.
I'm an Avenger.
You're an Avenger. Have I killed you before?
Now, in late 2022, Jeff Loveness was busy working on a draft for Avengers The Kang Dynasty, and he tweeted in September 2022, jokingly, "Hey, how do you write a movie?" Quantumania came out in February 2023, featuring a final fight between Kang the Conqueror and Scott Lang that ended with Kang getting sucked into the multiversal engine core and seeming to disappear, but many of us assumed at that point would then be caught in some kind of probability storm of his own and later emerge as a deadly Kang Prime. The epilogue sequence of Quantumania featured Scott Lang questioning whether he truly won this battle in a scene edited like some kind of glitch in the Matrix sequence in which Scott kept seeing Kang's colors of purple and green everywhere in his life. That led to a mid-credit scene in Quantumania revealing the Council of Kangs, in which Jonathan Majors played all the Kang variants, including the three at the top, Immortus, Pharaoh Ramatut, and Scarlet Centurion.
So, the exiled one is dead.
How many did you call?
All of us.
And the post-credit scene of Quantumania was just a clip from Loki's upcoming second season, the third episode of that season, in which Loki and Mobius found Kang variant Victor Timely at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. But after Quantumania's release in February 2023, began Marvel's Year of Woe, I think we can now call it. Quantumania underperformed at the box office and was met with less than stellar reviews. Jeff Loveness said that he took the feedback pretty hard, which we hated to see because Loveness is a friend of the channel, and by all accounts, he's a really nice, hilarious, super talented guy. We also heard that Quantumania director Peyton Reed, after this movie, decided to go into a bit of a director exile and has spent the past several months in the British countryside, avoiding major IP projects. At this point in early 2023, there were also some reports that Marvel Studios had developed a difficult working relationship with some VFX artists for rushed turnaround times, and either related or unrelated, Marvel parted ways with their longtime executive, Victoria Alonso, who internally at the studio was often their liaison to these VFX companies. During this time, though, Loveness was still working on the Kang Dynasty script, and in February 2023, in the weeks after Quantumania's release, told Gizmodo in an interview that he was not planning on using the Fantastic Four or Blade in his version of the script. Then in March 2023, Loveness appeared on the Friends from Work podcast and talked about the difficulties of following up Infinity War and Endgame with another Avengers movie script.
I think, obviously, it's almost comedic how hard this challenge is. It's like, oh no, you have to follow up Endgame and Infinity War. Both made about $2 billion, and everyone loves it. So it's been nice to have a buddy that you can kind of joke about that with. It's like, oh yeah, we have to quite literally, on paper, maybe the hardest job in the world. As far as movies go. But I don't know. I'm just trying not to think about it and write a movie that I would like, and we'll see how it goes.
It also came out in April 2023, according to Xochitl Gomez, that Michael Waldron reportedly did 33 rewrites on his draft of Multiverse of Madness that had a lot of people worried about what the studio was putting Jeff Loveness and Michael Waldron through for this writing process for Avengers The Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. But Loveness's podcast appearance was likely recorded before the news broke that Jonathan Majors had been arrested for assault. This is not a hot take, but my favorite part of going out to eat is the food. I've never cleared time out of my calendar just to go to a restaurant and soak up the ambiance. What I really want is a fresh, high-quality meal made by someone who knows more about food than I ever will. And if I can get that at home, even better. I've saved money, saved time, and still got a great meal. That's why I use Cook Unity. Cook Unity delivers restaurant-quality meals from award-winning chefs right to your door, saving you the hassle of shopping, cooking, and planning. Their menu is huge, so you get to enjoy a wide variety of global gourmet flavors to suit your palate. And And if you've just made a New Year's resolution to go vegan, keto, high protein, low sodium, or any of 1,000 other dietary choices, Cook Unity has you covered. Personally, I'm trying to be better about not eating so many ultra-processed foods, and Cook Unity is making that easy and delicious to do. We tried California-style chicken enchiladas from Chef Kevin Meehan, and it was so good. We've also loved the French beef ragu and the Mediterranean chicken shawarma bowl. Cook Unity is offering our viewers 50% off their first week. Just click the link in the description below and use code NRockstars50 to try it out. Once again, that's 50% off your first week of Cook Unity if you click the link in the description and use code NRockstars50. Thanks to Cook Unity for sponsoring this video. And then in May 2023, the Writers Guild went on strike, so any scripts that were in any stage of development were forced to halt the writing process. And then in July, the Actors Guild went on strike as well, meaning any scripts that were completed still had to shut down production since actors had to walk off sets. So this gave Marvel Studios leadership a few months to review all of their projects in the pipeline. And in September 2023, the company leadership met at their annual Palm Springs retreat, reported by Variety a couple months later in November 2023, and it was reported then that the decision to replace Kang with Doom was finalized in September of 2023. We later got confirmation of this from Robert Downey Jr. himself in the Awards Chatter podcast that his conversation with Kevin Feige to return as Dr. Doom occurred around September 2023. So then in November 2023, it was announced that Destin Daniel Cretton was stepping away from directing Avengers 5 in order to focus on Shang-Chi 2, and it would later be announced that he would be directing Spider-Man 4. Also in November 2023, Deadline reported that the writing for Avengers 5 would be handed over from Jeff Loveness to Michael Waldron, the Loki Season 1 head writer who wrote the final draft of Multiverse of Madness and at this time was writing the draft of Avengers Secret Wars. But we later learned in the months that followed, according to a recent interview in Empire, the new creative team behind these films, the Russo brothers and screenwriter Stephen McFeely, that they said at some point the idea to come back was floated to them by Kevin Feige and they initially resisted, but that McFeely called the Russos back the next morning with some big idea for how to do these films and they were all on board. So in December 2023, upon Jonathan Majors' guilty verdict, the actor was fired by Marvel Studios. On February 17, 2024, 1 year after Quantumania's release, Jeff Loveness posted on Instagram joking about his own apparent screenwriting exile.
Oh no. I'm still empty inside. This was all for nothing. Why did I come here? I'll never write again. Yes. Yes.
And then the week after that, an article from The Hollywood Reporter investigated Marvel's internal attempts to retool after what was described as superhero fatigue. And this article claimed that the Kang storyline for Avengers 5 would now be minimized or dropped entirely. Still, as late as June 2024, Benedict Cumberbatch indicated that he was still going to be in Avengers 5, which he indicated would be shooting next year, as in 2025, which it still is.
I'm very much looking forward to Avengers next year, which is cooking up a storm.
But in the next month, July 2024, Kevin Feige announced at Comic-Con that the Russo brothers were returning to direct Avengers 5, which would now be known as Avengers Doomsday, as well as Avengers Secret Wars, both scripts being written by Stephen McFeely, and that this event would now star Robert Downey Jr. returning as Dr. Doom. And in terms of what their plan would be, they only really said 4 words.
New mask. Same task.
And now, at the start of 2025, Benedict Cumberbatch confirmed in an interview with Variety that Doctor Strange will not be in Avengers Doomsday. He said Doctor Strange is taking a hiatus in the next Marvel sequel, 2026's Avengers Doomsday. Is that a spoiler? He asks. F it. Undeterred, he shares that things changed when Jonathan Majors, whose character Kang was intended to serve as the main antagonist of the next phase of the comic book film franchise, was fired in 2024, setting context, after being convicted of assaulting his ex-girlfriend. Cumberbatch's absence from Doomsday has to do with, quote, the character not aligning with this part of the story. And though he probably shouldn't be saying this, he also reveals that Doctor Strange is in a lot of Avengers Secret Wars, which will hit theaters in 2027. He's quite central to where things might go, Cumberbatch teases, and he hints at the character, last seen casting spells in 2022's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, will appear in a third standalone film, but is hesitant to say too much beyond praising Marvel for being collaborative. They are very open to discussing where we go next, he says. Who do you want to write and direct the next one? What part of the comic lore do you want to explore so that Strange can keep evolving? He's a very rich character to play. He's a complex, contradictory, troubled human who's got these extraordinary abilities, so there's potent stuff to mess about with. Cumberbatch later went on to say about the MCU in general, it's the modern myths of our times, Cumberbatch says. Yes, it's huge and unwieldy, but Marvel is is so committed to getting it right, even when we make one of these Avengers films and it gets exponentially huger, we're still just kids playing in a sandpit. We're still just making shit up and having fun with it. So there are a few ways we can interpret Cumberbatch's words as to his changing involvement with Avengers Doomsday. At first, him texting Kevin Feige, what the f***, even in a good way, upon Robert Downey Jr.'s announcement, suggests that Cumberbatch was completely caught off guard by that, which is pretty surprising for this actor who is reported to be the star of the previous iteration of the film, especially when Tom Holland said in a podcast interview that he knew ahead of time that Robert Downey Jr. was coming back. But according to Variety's article, Cumberbatch cited Jonathan Majors leaving the studio and Doctor Strange in this new Doctor Doom-centered version of the story not aligning with this part of the story. And we could take this to mean when Avengers 5 was centered around Kang the Conqueror, Doctor Strange had a much bigger role, a role that Cumberbatch described as a storm. But now with Doctor Doom at the center of the story, whatever new mask same task means is some storyline in which Doctor Strange has to be elsewhere, perhaps in his own film, Doctor Strange 3, which could be a more direct adaptation of Time Runs Out and come out between Doomsday and Secret Wars in like November 2026. And then after that, Doctor Strange will have, as Cumberbatch teases, a lot more to do in Secret Wars. Actually, on the break room, we speculated that that could mean a team up in alignment with Doctor Doom in Battleworld in Secret Wars, like in Secret Wars number 5, which was the comic issue that was teased as an Easter egg in Deadpool and Wolverine. There's a moment after Doctor Doom and Molecule Man destroy the Beyonders, and Doom tells Strange that together they can save the remnants of the worlds that were destroyed, decide who lives and who dies, and Doctor Strange tells Doom, "It's too much to fathom, Victor. It's too much. I can't. But you can." As to the original plan for the Kang Dynasty, many have pointed to this December 2024 Twitter thread from an anonymous account known as Exiled Scooper, spelled with a 3 in there, claiming to summarize some leak of an April 28th, 2023 script draft written by Jeff Loveness. This, we must say from the outset, is almost certainly complete bullshit. As you read through this, the amount of effort that went into dramatizing the story beats suggests the work of fan fiction rather than an honest summary of real dialogue and real scenic exposition as it would actually be written out on a real script page. It also contradicts the little Jeff Loveness said about what he was working on when he was still assigned to this project. It does amount to a pretty wild read, picking up with Kang the Conqueror after his defeat in Quantumania, and then it goes into like a massive war between the Watchers and the Council of Kangs from Quantumania, and then those 3 Kangs of Immortus, Pharaoh Ramatut, and the Centurion targeting the 10 Rings and the Quantum Bands, aka the Nega Bands, in a devastating Independence Day style assault on Earth's major cities, in which the merged forces of the Avengers split up into 3 teams to stop them, but fail, ending with Immortus powering up into Kang Prime on a path to become an Omega level being. This fanfiction is clearly trying to parrot and heighten the apocalyptic drama and cliffhanger of Infinity War. This was not the original plan for Avengers The Kang Dynasty, I'm almost certain. But New Rockstars now has a new show format to investigate these kind of rumors and claims called The Rumor Rundown, the first episode of which dropped last Friday. And I think in a future episode, we're gonna have to look deeper into this Exiled Scooper thread because it's just pretty hilarious. But what was the plan for Kang Dynasty was a storm that confronted Doctor Strange with Kang the Conqueror that did not involve the Fantastic Four or Blade, but still might have focused more on relics like the 10 Rings and the Quantum Bands. And I'm not basing that on the Exiled Scooper thread, but rather on the fact that Destin Daniel Cretton was the original director for Avengers 5 and probably intended on linking the 10 Rings post-credit scene and that mystery beacon to the coming threat of the Council of Kangs. Also, I'm getting that from exclusive confirmations I received in interviews with Iman Vellani, one in summer 2022 and another in fall 2023, that it was her understanding in those times that the Quantum Bands and Kamala Khan's time travel was part of Kang's plan, and that the original inscription on the bangle was, "What is destined for you will come for you."
Do you think Kang or He Who Remains might have planned specifically for Kamala to go back in time?
Yeah. Okay, so the inscription on the bangle used to be, "What is destined for you will come for you." We did change it after that, but I like to use that as a way of, justifying how Kamala goes back in time and why that was meant to happen, because there were so many questions, and we really wanted to bring partition in the story and just, I know it's cramming a lot in episodes 4 and 5, but we didn't know if we were going to have season 2, and we had to put all our cards on the table and just like show everything about this culture and the history of it. And so that line, "What is destined for you will come for you," that used to be on the bangle, is kind of a good sense of, this was meant to happen, predestination, even if it kind of hurts the endgame time travel rules, but so does old Steve Rogers. So
exactly. You know how it works.
So yeah. Kevin Feige is the Kang of this universe. That's how I like to.
And then in the second interview, Iman confirmed to me that an original script draft for the Marvels clarified that the gold marking that marked the spot where Dar-Benn found the second quantum band was meant to be the burial site of Eon, the cosmic entity that represents time that we saw grouped together with things like the Living Tribunal and Lady Death in that cosmic being chamber in Thor: Love and Thunder. Did naming them quantum bands, as far as you know, imply any other historical owners of these?
Like Quasar and stuff?
Yeah, maybe.
I still think Eon's a contender. Like,
Okay.
I think he definitely
Right.
forced him. I know you, did you have a theory about, like, was it still Eon or?
My just explanation of, like, canonically Eon created them. My theory is that they're not going to make Eon, at least right now, a physical presence.
I don't think they'll say Eon, but
Yeah.
I swear there was a version of our script where Dar-Benn actually name drops Eon, like this was his grave or something where they found it.
Oh.
So in my head, that still makes sense.
So from all of this, we know that at some point there was a version of the MCU in which Eon, the very concept of time, is dead. As if to say, the plan was for the Council of Kangs to have murdered Eon, or just manipulated with time so many times that it caused the decay of Eon in a kind of death by 1,000 cuts sort of way. And then that they, or one of the Kangs, buried the quantum band at Eon's gravesite. I think in Loveness's draft and in Destino Cretton's version of the film, it was going to be on Doctor Strange to explain to characters like Shang-Chi and Kamala Khan these relics and their value to the Council of Kangs. But now in McFeely's draft and in the Russo's version of Avengers Doomsday, those details of the 10 rings, linkage, and the quantum bands, and of course the whole Kang part of it, is all likely being scrapped. And that instead, this story is going to be focused much more on the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom. And it could just be that with a brainiac like Reed Richards in the mix, structurally you might not need Doctor Strange as the smartest man in the room. Increasingly, it sounds like Kang Dynasty was going to be a story about Doctor Strange mentoring and leading the new era of Phase 4 and Phase 5 Avengers in a battle against Kang and his variants. Doomsday is now going to be a story about Doctor Doom, following more closely Jonathan Hickman's Time Runs Out storyline, using some of the bigger name Marvel heroes with a lineup reminding us more of Infinity War. And that's why they got that team back. So that is, for now, everything we know about the original plan for Avengers The Kang Dynasty, and what perhaps more comic accurate role Doctor Strange could play in these interconnected stories. Comment down below with your thoughts and follow me at EA Voss. Subscribe to all of our channels in the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.